We weren't supposed to get attached to the callers. That was rule number 1 at the overnight crisis and information line. Listen, log, transfer, hang up. No friendships. No follow-ups. No real names. Let the day staff worry about outcomes, our supervisor told us. You're here to keep the lines open and the data clean. But you can't work the night shift without hearing some things that stick. People call at 2 a.m. to confess affairs, debts, crimes. They call to ask if the pills they took will kill them. If the sound they heard downstairs is probably nothing. If anyone will miss them when they're gone. You hear the kind of sentences that feel like they should be someone's last words. And then, one night, you meet a man who really, truly loves those sentences. His name was Sato. At least, that's what the badge on his lanyard said. Sato, night operator. He joined our team in October when the weather had just turned. And the callers got lonelier. He was perfectly ordinary in all the ways that make a person impossible to remember. Average height, average build, hair cropped short, glasses with thin frames. Always in a dark sweater, no logos. No smell of cigarettes or cologne. Polite, quiet, early for every shift. What do you think? My coworker asked after his first week. About what? I said. About the new guy, she said, nodding toward his desk. He was sitting very straight, headphones on. Eyes on his screen. One hand resting lightly on the keyboard. The other holding a pen over a blank pad of paper. Seems fine, I said. Better than the guy who fell asleep during a call last month. I grimaced. Yeah, she said. At least Sato stays awake. She didn't say the other thing yet. That sometimes, when the call center was completely quiet, he would stay frozen like that. For several minutes at a time. As if waiting for a voice only he could hear. Our call center handled a bit of everything. Municipal info, after-hours medical guidance. And, between midnight and 4 a.m., a rotating crisis hotline. Not a suicide line, officially. That would have required more funding. Just emotional support and emergency referral. In practice, it was people alone in the dark. Calling a stranger because they had no one else left. We took turns on the crisis line. 30 minutes each, cycling. The first time I overheard Sato on one of those calls. It was because the room had gone unusually quiet. Even the printer had stopped its clacking. His voice carried across the cubicle divider. I see, he was saying calmly. You're on the bridge now? A pause. And there's no one else with you. No cars. No pedestrians. He wasn't supposed to ask that last part. Our training emphasized staying focused on the caller. Not the scene. Is there someone you trust you could call? I heard myself whisper in my head. Reciting the script. Sato didn't use the script much. What made you choose this place? He asked instead. Another pause. I understand, he said. You came here when you were happy once. A date. A festival. So it feels poetic. His chair creaked as he leaned forward. And if tonight is the night, he added softly. What words do you want to leave behind? What should be the last thing you ever say? That belongs only to you? My fingers froze over my own keyboard. This was wrong. We were trained to steer people away from final decisions. Away from last times, last words, last anything. Encourage future thinking, the manual said. Ask about tomorrow, next week, next year. Sato was guiding the caller in the opposite direction. Down a narrowing tunnel toward an ending. I could hear faint sobbing in his headset now. Leaking over the edge of the foam. Take your time, he murmured. I'm listening. I'll write it down. Exactly as you say it. He picked up his pen. There was a long silence. Then he began to write. Slowly. Carefully. When the call ended, he didn't hit the usual keys. No transfer, no alert. He simply said, "Thank you for telling me," and disconnected. Our software flagged every crisis call, assigned it a bright red tag, and prompted us to fill out a structured form. Risk level, intervention, outcome. Sato didn't fill out the form. He typed 3 letters in the outcome field instead. N/A. No action. Later, during the break, I asked him casually, "How was your first week covering the red line?" He smiled, polite but distant. "It's interesting," he said. "Intense," I corrected. "Sometimes it sticks in your head." "Yes," he agreed. "The way people choose their last words is very revealing." He stirred the sugar in his coffee, even though he never drank it sweeter than bitter brown. "Last words?" I repeated. "You mean, like that caller just now?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Some people are already gone," he said. "By the time they call, we're just the last room they pass through." He didn't ask how much I had heard. I didn't admit how much I had listened. We went back to our desks. On his notepad, he had torn off the top sheet and hidden it in his pocket. The fresh sheet was perfectly blank. The pattern took weeks to notice. Night shifts blur together. Faces, voices, problems. But the system remembers. Every call gets a number, a timestamp, a summary. At the end of each week, our supervisor prints a thin stack of anonymized high-risk cases for review. "Look at these," I whispered one night, pushing the stack toward me. "Do you see anything weird?" I flipped through them, half interested. Page 3. Caller on a highway overpass, saying life was meaningless. Operator, Sato. Outcome, caller declined referral, terminated call. Page 7. Caller locked in their apartment, crying, talking about leaving a beautiful message. Operator, Sato. Outcome, caller calmed, insisted they were at peace and hung up. Page 12. Caller on a cliff near the sea, describing the sound of the waves and the wind. Operator, Sato. Outcome, no intervention required. The phrasing bothered me. They all end on a kind of closure, I said slowly. Like the person has found the perfect line to end on. And then Sato logs them as stable or self-terminated. I nodded. "I checked the follow-up logs," she said. "Some of those numbers never show up again. No callbacks. No police welfare checks. It's like they just fall off the map." "That happens," I said. "People change numbers. Move away." "Maybe," she said. "But listen to this." She unfolded a scrap of paper from her pocket. "I found this in the shred bin," she said. I shouldn't have looked, but it was just sitting there. On it, in a very neat hand, were 3 sentences. Each one was in quotes. Each one sounded like the end of a life. Asterisk, tell my wife I finally watched the sunrise she always talked about. Asterisk. Asterisk, I don't blame anyone. I just want to stop feeling like this. Asterisk. Asterisk, if someone finds this phone, please delete my photos. I don't want my mother to see me like this. Asterisk. There was no caller ID. No timestamps. Just the sentences. Underneath, in smaller letters. As if to label them. Collection number 17. My stomach turned. "Maybe it's a training exercise," I said weakly. "Role-play lines. For practice." My looked at me. "We never practiced those," she said. "We practice interrupting last words, remember?" The scrap of paper trembled slightly in her fingers. "I think he's writing them down," she whispered. "Everyone's last sentences. Like trophies." We both jumped when the supervisor walked in. "Break's over," she said. "Phones are lighting up." We went back to our desks. Sato was already seated, hands folded on his notepad. waiting. After that, I started to listen. Not to his calls directly, privacy was still a rule I understood. But to the way his voice changed. Just slightly. When he sensed a caller who might be ready to end something. Most calls he took in the neutral company tone. Yes, sir. I understand. Let me transfer you. But every now and then, that tone softened. I see, he'd say quietly. You're alone now. His pen would move. Can I ask you something? He'd murmur. If tonight were the last night, what would you want to say, just once? With someone really listening? He never said before you die. He never said suicide. He didn't have to. You could hear it in his breathing. He leaned into the words. One night, after a call like that, he caught me watching him. Is something wrong, Nakata? He asked. His eyes looked genuinely curious. Just making sure you're okay, I said. He smiled a little. People always worry about the callers, he said. Never about the listeners. He tapped his notepad. Don't worry, he added. I'm very careful. About what I keep. I tried to talk to our supervisor. It's probably nothing, I said. But Sato doesn't always follow the de-escalation script. And I've seen him write down caller quotes in a way that feels. I stopped before saying obsessive. Our supervisor sighed. Nakata, she said. We're understaffed and overworked. If he's handling the volume and not breaking any laws. I don't care if he writes poetry between calls. But what if someone dies after talking to him? I insisted. People die after talking to all of us, she said. We're not gods. We can't control what they do when they hang up. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Look, she added more gently. If he crosses a clear line, gives instructions, encourages anything, bring me specific examples. Until then, don't turn your coworkers into monsters in your head. Night shift does that to people. I went back to my desk. Angry at her. And secretly relieved. Because if she was right, then this was just my tired brain. My own fear. Projecting meaning onto a man who was simply too calm for this job. The call that changed everything came in January. It was snowing again. Just like the night Sato started. The city felt muffled. Most of our calls were simple. Pipe burst, heater broken, can't sleep, need a clinic. At 3:12 a.m., the crisis line lit up on Sato's screen. He glanced at the ID. Put on his headset. And answered. Night line, he said. This is Sato. I'm listening. I tried to focus on my own caller. An elderly man was asking about trash pickup schedules. For New Year's. But through the flimsy divider, I heard a different voice. Young, male, shaking. Don't know why I called, he was saying. I already finished writing everything. Everything? Sato asked softly. My messages, the caller said. To my parents. To my ex. To my dog, even, I guess. He laughed, brittle and wet. I just wanted. I don't know. A final human voice. That doesn't know me. Sato's chair creaked as he leaned back. That makes sense, he said gently. Sometimes strangers can hold things. People close to you cannot. He pulled his notepad closer. What did you write? He asked. My hand tightened on my own phone. I could have pressed the key. That flagged a supervisor. That patched in emergency services. Instead, I listened. I told them I'm not angry, the caller said. That I'm tired of myself. That I don't want to be a burden. That this is the only way I can stop thinking. About everything I messed up. His breathing hitched. And I wrote. I wrote that I'm sorry. I couldn't be the person they remembered. From when I was a kid. Sato's pen moved quickly. That's very clear, he said. Very complete. The word chilled me. Do you, Sato added, want to say something different now? Something just for you? Not for your parents, or your ex, or anyone else. Just one line that is yours alone. The caller was quiet for a long time. The elderly man on my own line was still talking about trash bags. I barely heard him. Maybe, the caller whispered at last. Maybe I want to say nothing. Sato smiled. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it in his voice. Even nothing is something, he murmured. But if you truly want silence, I can give you that. He pressed a key. My console flickered. The red crisis tag on his screen changed to gray. Call ended by caller, the log said automatically. Sato hung up his headset, tore off the top page of his notepad, folded it into a neat rectangle, and slid it into his pocket. Then he stood. Bathroom, he said. He walked out of the room. I stared at his screen. The system still showed the caller's number. I had admin privileges. Supervisors trusted me. My fingers moved before I could think. I pulled up the call details, flagged it as high risk, immediate action, and forwarded it to the emergency response line. A red banner flashed. Alert sent. 4 minutes later, an automated note stamped itself into the log. Police dispatched to location. I closed the window. When Sato came back, he glanced once at the screen, then at me. Well, he said softly, some people don't get the silence they wanted. He sat down. On his notepad, a fresh sheet waited. Blank. We never heard officially what happened to that caller. We weren't supposed to. Data privacy. Boundaries. But night operators gossip like anyone else. And one of the emergency dispatchers happened to be dating a girl in accounting. Who talked to my? Who told me? They found him by the river. She said. He had taken pills, cut his wrists, and left his phone on the ground beside him. The call had given them just enough time. He survived. Barely. And was moved to a psychiatric ward. Lucky break, the dispatcher had said. If the nightline operator hadn't flagged it, we would have found him in the morning. I squeezed my arm. That was you, right? She whispered. You changed the tag. I nodded. Sato did not mention it. For 3 nights. He barely spoke to anyone. His calls were short, efficient, technical. No more talk of last words. No more pen on the notepad. I wondered if he was angry. I wondered if I had broken some private game. He thought he was winning. On the 4th night, he came to my desk during break. You interfered with one of my calls, he said calmly. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said, equally calm. It was within protocol. He tilted his head slightly, studying my face. Do you believe you saved his life? He asked. Yes, I said. At least for now. He nodded, as if confirming a hypothesis. And does that make you feel good? He asked. Yes, I said, then hesitated. Actually, it makes me feel tired. Because I know I can't do it for everyone. The corner of his mouth twitched. That, he said, is the difference between us. He took something from his pocket and placed it on my desk. A folded piece of paper. I unfolded it. On it, in his neat hand, were 2 sentences. The caller's final message. The one he had never gotten to say. Asterisk, I don't want to be found. I just want my thoughts to stop ringing. Asterisk. Below it, in smaller letters. Interrupted collection. I looked up sharply. You're treating them like specimens, I said. He shrugged. Everyone collects something, he said. Stamps. Photos. Likes. You collect stories. I collect endings. He tapped the paper gently. You saved him from this one, he went on. But you didn't erase it. You just moved it to your file. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. But in the wrong way. How does it feel, he asked. To carry someone's last words. When they're still alive? He left before I could answer. After that, I started my own collection. Not on purpose. At first, it was just a notebook, where I scribbled fragments, so I could tell my therapist why I couldn't sleep. Asterisk, I wish I'd never woken up this morning. Asterisk. Asterisk, if tomorrow looks like today, I'm done. Asterisk. Asterisk, tell my kids I tried. Asterisk. I wrote them down so they wouldn't echo in my head. I told myself that putting them on paper would drain their power. But paper is heavier than it looks. Soon I had 3 notebooks. Then 5. On a slow night, I caught Sato watching me as I wrote. You see, he said quietly, when our supervisor had gone home early. You understand now. Understand what? I snapped. That someone has to remember, he said. Most people pretend the world is full of fresh starts and second chances. You and I work the hours when that isn't true. He leaned back, eyes half closed. Those sentences, he continued, are the purest version of a person. Everything else is noise. When you know someone's last words, you know the shape of their life more clearly than if you sat in their house for a year. And what do you do with that? I demanded. Frame it? Put it on a shelf? He tilted his head. Why do you think I stay on nights? He asked. Where else could I hear so many endings? He stood. One day, he added casually, you'll have one too. If you're lucky, you'll get to choose it. If you're very lucky, someone will write it down accurately. He walked back to his desk. On his screen, a new call flashed. He answered it with a smile. Nightline, he said. I'm listening. The complaint started a month later. Not formal ones. Not at first. Just a pattern of red notes in the system. Caller disconnected, unreachable on follow-up. Police check requested, no response at address. Emergency services dispatched, patient refused transport, left scene. Some of those were mine. Some were Mai's. Some were Sato's. It was night shift. People disappeared. But in the staff room, over instant ramen and vending machine coffee, rumors grew. Did you hear about the woman who jumped in front of the last train? Someone said. She called us a week before. I swear I recognize her voice. I had a guy who said he sleeps with a rope tied to the ceiling hook, another muttered. Haven't seen his number since. They turned to look at Sato. And you? Mai asked. Any of your regulars drop off the map? He considered. I don't have regulars, he said. I have visitors. He took a bite of dry convenience store bread. Everyone who calls the night line, he continued, is already halfway out the door. They just want someone to hear the sound it makes when they close it. Stop talking like that, Mai said. Why? He asked mildly. Does it scare you? She didn't answer. He smiled. That's good, he said. Fear makes the words clearer. The last straw for me came on a night in March, when the air outside the call center smelled faintly of thawing garbage and stale rain. We were down 2 operators. The phones were relentless. Sato and I ended up back to back, taking crisis calls for nearly an hour straight. Halfway through a particularly bad one, a woman whispering from a closet while her husband pounded on the door, I heard something that made my skin crawl. Sato, on his line, was whispering along with his caller. Not repeating their words. Anticipating them. And you're thinking, no one will understand, he said softly. No one will remember me, right? He paused, listening. Yes, he murmured. Exactly. So tell me. Say it exactly once, here, and I'll remember it for you. His pen scratched on paper. That's good, he added. Very good. I wouldn't change a single word. I wrapped up my own call as best I could. Escalated it. Sent emergency services. Then I walked over to his desk. Sato, I said. We need to talk. He looked up, annoyed. Like I'd interrupted a show. Later, he said. I'm in the middle of something. I reached past him and hit the supervisor key on his console. A red banner popped up. Supervisor monitoring enabled. He stared at it. Then at me. His eyes were flat. You shouldn't have done that, he said. The supervisor's station lit up. Across the room, our supervisor plugged in her headset. Sato, her voice crackled over the internal line. I'm on your call now. Continue, please. He smiled slowly. Of course, he said. To the caller, he added. We have another listener with us now. Would you like to repeat what you said about the letter? There was a pause. I don't know, the caller said, voice breaking. I feel stupid now. I ripped it up. That's okay, Sato said smoothly. Sometimes destroying something is part of ending it. You did well to call instead of acting on impulse. His pen moved. But let's talk about tomorrow, he continued, suddenly switching to the official script. Is there somewhere safe you can stay tonight? Someone you trust you could call? He guided the conversation perfectly. Future focus, safety plan. Permission to transfer to an on-call counselor. He ticked every box. When the call ended, our supervisor sounded almost impressed. Good work, Sato, she said in his ear. Thank you for looping me in. The red banner vanished. Sato took off his headset. You see, he said softly to me. I can follow the rules. When someone is watching. He tapped his notepad. Most of the time, no one is. He tore off the top sheet, folded it, and slipped it into his pocket. I reported him formally the next day. I brought copies of his collections that I had quietly photographed. Pages of quoted sentences, each labeled with a number. I pointed out the pattern of his logs. How often his calls ended with no intervention, despite high-risk language. I admitted, finally, that sometimes the details of the callers' deaths in the news matched the scenes they had described to him. Our supervisor listened. Face tight. Hands clasped. Then she said the thing I had dreaded. Without a direct causal link. It's just style. He uses different language. He might be drawn to certain callers. That doesn't make him responsible for what they do. She rubbed her temples. We can review his calls, she said. Maybe send him to another department. But, Nakata, be careful about the stories you tell yourself. The night shift already feels haunted. Without you turning your coworker into a monster. She closed the folder. I walked out of her office, shaking. In the hallway, Sato was waiting. How did it go? He asked pleasantly. HR will review, I muttered. He nodded. Good, he said. They should. He stepped closer. I'm glad you're paying attention, Nakata, he whispered. Collectors need someone to curate their work. Otherwise it just becomes noise. He smiled. And I'd hate for your last words to be wasted on something trivial. I quit the night shift a month later. Officially, I cited health reasons. Unofficially, I couldn't sit in that chair anymore. Knowing Sato was a few meters away. Ears pressed to the dark. Waiting for a stranger to offer him a perfect final line. I moved to a daytime job in a different building, different department, different district. The insomnia followed. So did the notebook. At first, I carried it to show my future therapist. Then I carried it because I couldn't bear to leave it at home. Inside were sentences. Not just from callers. From my own life. The argument with my sister, where she said, maybe we shouldn't talk anymore. It's easier that way. The last thing my father said to me before the aneurysm took him. I think there was something I wanted to tell you. They looked different on the page. More vulnerable. I understood, in a small, cold way, why Sato wrote them down. Last words are like rare butterflies. Some people feel compelled to pin them. One afternoon, as I was closing a customer support ticket at my new job, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Static. Then Sato's voice. Good afternoon, Nakata, he said. Day shift suits you. My chest locked. How did you get this number? I demanded. He ignored the question. I wanted to thank you, he said. That caller by the river? The one you interfered with? He's getting help now. He writes long blog posts about my journey back from the edge. There was no mockery in his tone. Just interest. You saved his life, Sato went on. But you also fixed his last words. On the page. I realized my hand was already reaching for my notebook. Don't worry, he added. I've moved on to a different collection. What collection? I whispered. Listeners, he said simply. The people who carry other people's endings. The ones who stay up at night, replaying conversations from years ago. He chuckled. You should read what you've written, Nakata. You're quite good. The line crackled. Don't call me again, I said. He sighed, disappointment soft in his voice. Everyone says that, he murmured. Right before they say something important. A pause. Anyway, he added. If you ever feel like you're at the end, call the night line. Ask for me. Click. The call dropped. I reported it, of course. But numbers can be spoofed. Records erased. The night line's management insisted. Sato had transferred to another department. Then another prefecture. The turnover is high, they said. People come and go. Somewhere, I thought. A man with a notepad was writing that down. Now, when my friends tell me about their bad nights, their intrusive thoughts, the times they almost called a stranger in the dark, I listen closely. I ask them what they would have said. I write some of it down. I tell myself it's to give those words somewhere safe to live, so they don't echo in their throats. But sometimes, late at night, when I open my notebook and see page after page of endings, I wonder if there's a line between collecting to understand and collecting to own. I think of Sato, sitting in some other call center, some other city's sleepless room, pen poised, eyes bright, waiting for the phone to ring. Night line, he says. I'm listening. Maybe one day, without meaning to, you'll dial his number. You'll reach him on a night when your thoughts are too loud. When he asks you, gently, what would you like your last words to be? If tonight was truly the end, I hope you remember the story. I hope you hear the scratch of his pen and realize that he's not writing to help you. He's writing for himself. Because in a world full of data and anonymous logs and forgotten calls, there's one man who doesn't need to see your face to own the moment you almost disappear. And for someone like that, the scariest thing you can do is hang up before he has time to finish the sentence.